Actually, my family owns 70% of this airline, Jasper Williams stated calmly to the red-faced businessman demanding his removal from first class. The cabin fell silent. The flight attendant's smile vanished as the businessman's face drained of color, realizing who he'd been harassing for the past 20 minutes. Before we dive into this incredible story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever witnessed someone being completely shut down after making the wrong assumption. Let's see what happened when this entitled passenger picked the wrong black teen to mess with. The Atlanta International Airport buzzed with its usual chaotic energy as 17-year-old Jasper Williams navigated through the crowded terminal. Despite the summer heat outside, he remained cool in his impeccably tailored navy suit, his leather messenger bag slung over one shoulder. The first-class ticket to New York clutched in his hand represented more than just a premium travel experience, it was part of his birthright, though few would assume that from looking at the young black teenager. As Jasper approached the priority check-in counter, the airline representative glanced up with a practiced smile that quickly faltered. "I think you might be in the wrong line, sweetie," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Regular check-in is over there." She pointed toward the significantly longer economy line. "I'm in the correct line," Jasper replied evenly, sliding his identification and first-class ticket across the counter. "I have a meeting in New York this afternoon." The woman's eyebrows shot up as she examined his documentation. Her smile returned, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, Mr. Williams. My apologies for the confusion." This wasn't the first time Jasper had experienced such assumptions, and he knew it wouldn't be the last. As he moved through security and toward his gate, he recalled his father's words from years ago, "Son, no matter what you achieve or what you own, there will always be people who see your skin first and everything else second. Your job isn't to get angry, it's to prove them wrong every single time." The boarding process began smoothly enough. Jasper was among the first to board, settling into his spacious first-class seat and arranging his materials for the meeting he planned to review during the flight. Everything was proceeding normally until Walter Blackwood boarded. Walter was in his 50s, with silver-streaked hair and the confident stride of someone accustomed to getting his way. His designer suit and leather briefcase telegraphed success and privilege. He stopped abruptly in the first-class aisle when he noticed Jasper, his expression morphing from surprise to disapproval. "I believe you're in my seat," Walter stated flatly, not even bothering to check his boarding pass. Jasper glanced up calmly. "Seat 2A. "No, I'm in 3C. He gestured to the empty seat across the aisle. "I believe that's 2A over there." Walter's jaw tightened. "I meant you're in the wrong section. First class." He emphasized the words as if Jasper might not understand their meaning. "My ticket is for first class," Jasper replied, keeping his voice level despite the heat rising in his chest. Walter scoffed and raised his hand, summoning a flight attendant. A woman named Melissa, according to her name tag, approached with a professional smile. "Is there a problem, sir?" she asked, addressing Walter exclusively. "Yes, there seems to be some confusion with the seating arrangements," Walter said, gesturing toward Jasper. "I think this young man has wandered into the wrong cabin." Melissa turned to Jasper, her smile thinning. "Do you have your boarding pass, sir?" Jasper produced his ticket again, which Melissa examined with unnecessary scrutiny. "And may I see some identification as well?" Jasper provided his ID, maintaining the composure his father had taught him was essential in these situations. He felt the familiar knot forming in his stomach, a combination of anger, hurt, and resignation. "Everything appears to be in order," Melissa finally admitted, though her tone suggested she found this surprising. "My apologies for the confusion." But Walter wasn't satisfied. "There must be some mistake. Check again." "Sir, his documentation is valid," Melissa replied, though she seemed reluctant to contradict Walter. "Look," Walter lowered his voice, though not enough to prevent Jasper from hearing, "I paid $3,000 for a peaceful, comfortable flight. I'm sure there's an empty seat in economy where he'd be more appropriate. Jasper felt the eyes of other first-class passengers on him. Some looked away uncomfortably when he met their gaze, others watched with undisguised curiosity. One passenger, a black woman in a crisp business suit, observed the interaction with a frown of recognition. "Sir, I understand your concern," Melissa said to Walter, still ignoring Jasper, "but I can't move a passenger with a valid first-class ticket." "Then I'd like to speak to your supervisor," Walter demanded, his voice rising. "Or better yet, call the CEO of the airline. I'm a platinum member, and I've never been treated this way." The tension in the cabin was palpable now. Other passengers were delayed in boarding, creating a backlog in the aisle. Jasper remained outwardly calm, but inside, a storm was brewing. He'd experienced this kind of treatment before, but it never hurt any less. Walter loomed over Jasper's seat, his expression darkening. "I don't know how you got that ticket, but people like you don't belong in first class." The cabin fell silent at the thinly veiled racist remark. Even Melissa looked uncomfortable now, though she made no move to intervene. The line had been crossed, and everyone knew it. In the suffocating silence that followed Walter's remark, Jasper finally decided enough was enough. Years of his father's teachings about restraint and dignity warred with the raw injustice of the moment. "Actually," Jasper said, his voice clear and steady, "my family owns 70% of this airline." He maintained direct eye contact with Walter. "Skyline Airways is a Williams family business." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Walter's face, previously flushed with indignation, drained of color. Melissa, the flight attendant, froze mid-gesture, her professional mask slipping to reveal naked shock. That's impossible," Walter stammered, but doubt had already crept into his voice. "Isaiah Williams is my father," Jasper continued calmly. "So when you say you'd like to speak to the CEO, I'd be happy to arrange that for you. He's on speed dial." He held up his phone, his finger hovering over the screen. The transformation in Melissa was remarkable. Her entire demeanor shifted from suspicious condescension to mortified deference in an instant. "Mr. Williams, I am so terribly sorry for the misunderstanding," she gushed, wringing her hands. "We had no idea we were serving a member of the Williams family today. Is there anything I can get you?" "Anything at all. Just the same service you'd provide to any first-class passenger would be fine," Jasper replied pointedly. Walter had not moved, seemingly rooted to the spot by shock and embarrassment. Behind him, a striking black woman in her early 40s stepped forward. She had been watching the entire exchange with keen interest. "Excuse me," she said to Walter, her voice polite but firm, "you're blocking the aisle." As Walter mumbled an apology and shuffled to his seat, she paused beside Jasper. "Amara Thompson," she introduced herself quietly. "Thompson Media Group." "That was quite a moment, young man. Your father must be proud." Jasper nodded in acknowledgement as Amara continued to her seat. He recognized her name. Thompson Media Group was one of the largest black-owned media companies in the country. His father had mentioned her as someone to watch. The whispers began almost immediately, spreading through the cabin like wildfire. Passengers were suddenly finding reasons to glance in Jasper's direction. Some looked impressed, others skeptical, and a few seemed downright uncomfortable. Jasper's phone buzzed with an incoming call. His father's name flashed on the screen. "Dad," he answered, aware that everyone within earshot was listening. "Jasper," Isaiah Williams's deep voice came through clearly. "I just got an alert about a disturbance on flight 1867. You're on that flight, aren't you?" "Yes, sir," Jasper replied. "There was a small misunderstanding about my seat assignment, but it's been cleared up." There was a pause on the other end. "What kind of misunderstanding?" Isaiah asked, his tone suggesting he understood exactly what type of misunderstanding his son had encountered. "The usual," Jasper said simply. "But like you taught me, I handled it." I'm sure you did, Isaiah replied, pride evident in his voice. We'll talk more when you land. Remember who you are, son. Always, Jasper promised before ending the call. When he looked up, Melissa was hovering nearby with a nervous smile. Mr. Williams, would you prefer to board our other first-class passengers before we serve pre-flight beverages, or shall I bring yours now? Please continue with your normal procedures, Jasper replied. And Melissa? You can just call me Jasper. Melissa nodded vigorously. Of course, Jasper. Whatever you prefer. The sudden switch from suspicion to sycophancy made Jasper deeply uncomfortable. This, too, was something his father had warned him about. The same people who doubt you when they think you're nobody will fawn over you once they know you're somebody. Neither reaction has anything to do with who you actually are. As the remaining passengers boarded, Jasper noticed the flight was running behind schedule. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We're working to get you on your way as quickly as possible." Jasper suspected that incident had been reported up the chain of command, likely causing the delay as staff scrambled to address the situation. He sighed, opening his laptop to distract himself from the stares and whispers that continued around him. Walter Blackwood sat rigidly in his seat, pointedly avoiding eye contact with anyone. The man who had been so confident in his superiority just moments ago now looked small and cornered, his privilege suddenly insufficient armor against the consequences of his actions. 45 minutes behind schedule, the aircraft finally pushed back from the gate. The usual safety demonstrations proceeded with an unusual level of attentiveness from the flight crew, who seemed particularly focused on ensuring Jasper's comfort. Every time a flight attendant passed his seat, they offered a solicitous smile or inquiry about his needs, creating a stark contrast to their initial reception. The plane ascended through clouds into clear blue skies, but the atmosphere in the first-class cabin remained thick with tension. Walter Blackwood had retreated into a forced study of his laptop, though his rigid posture and frequent nervous glances betrayed his discomfort. Twice since takeoff, he had attempted to catch Jasper's eye, clearly rehearsing some form of apology, but each time he'd lost his nerve when faced with the young man's steady gaze. Halfway through his third attempt, Walter finally spoke. "Look," he began, leaning slightly across the aisle, "I believe I owe you an apology. My behavior was inappropriate." Jasper set aside the financial report he'd been reviewing. "Was it inappropriate, Mr. Blackwood, or was it racist?" Walter flinched at the direct question. "I wouldn't say, you assumed I didn't belong in first class based solely on my appearance," Jasper continued calmly. "You were ready to have me removed despite seeing my valid ticket and ID. What would you call that?" Walter's mouth opened and closed without producing words. Finally, he managed, "A misunderstanding. A terrible misunderstanding. One you wouldn't have had if I were white," Jasper pointed out. Before Walter could respond, Amara Thompson appeared beside Jasper's seat. "Excuse me," she said. "I hate to interrupt, but I wanted to properly introduce myself." She extended her hand to Jasper. "We have mutual connections through your father." Grateful for the interruption, Jasper stood and shook her hand. "It's a pleasure, Miss Thompson. My father speaks highly of your work." "Please, call me Amara," she insisted. "And your father has been a remarkable ally in diversifying media coverage of black-owned businesses." She glanced briefly at Walter, who was pretending to be absorbed in his laptop again. "Mind if I join you for a moment?" At Jasper's gesture, she took the empty seat beside him. "What happened earlier," she said quietly, "is unfortunately all too familiar. First class while black, it's practically a crime in some people's eyes." Jasper nodded, remembering his first encounter with such prejudice. He'd been just 13, attending the prestigious Westlake Academy where his family's wealth had secured him a place but not acceptance. During a school trip, he'd been repeatedly questioned by the flight attendants about why he was seated in first class with the teachers while the other students were in economy. Even after his teachers had confirmed he belonged there, he'd received suspicious glances throughout the flight. "The first time it happened to me," Jasper shared, "I cried in the bathroom. I couldn't understand why being black made me suspicious." Amara's eyes softened with recognition. "The first time is always the hardest. For me, it was a hotel in Manhattan. I just made my first million, booked the presidential suite, and the staff thought I was lost." A sudden patch of turbulence interrupted their conversation, causing the plane to shudder. The seatbelt sign illuminated with a gentle chime. As Amara returned to her seat, Jasper noticed Walter gripping his armrests, his knuckles white. "Never been a good flyer," Walter muttered when he caught Jasper watching him. It seemed an attempt at normalizing their interaction, a bid for Jasper to see him as something other than the bigot from boarding. The turbulence intensified, and Walter's phone slipped from his lap. Jasper retrieved it before it could slide further away, handing it back just as the screen lit up with a notification. Jasper couldn't help but notice the email subject line, "Skyline Airways contract discussion, urgent." Walter snatched the phone away, but it was too late. Their eyes met, and Walter knew that Jasper had seen it. "You're meeting with my father's company," Jasper stated rather than asked. Walter swallowed hard. Blackwood Investments has been exploring a potential partnership with Skyline Airways. "Nothing finalized yet." Jasper said nothing, but his expression spoke volumes. Walter's earlier behavior now carried potentially serious professional consequences. Melissa appeared at Jasper's side, offering him a fresh drink even though his current one was still half full. "Is everything to your satisfaction, Jasper?" she asked, her voice honeyed with deference. "Everything's fine, thank you," he replied, watching her carefully. This was the same woman who had been ready to doubt his right to be in first class an hour ago. As Melissa moved away, Jasper found himself reflecting on his father's frequent observation. "Respect based on who they think you are isn't respect at all." He pulled out his phone and composed a text to his father, heading to New York. "Had the usual, first class while black, experience during boarding. Also, Walter Blackwood from Blackwood Investments is on my flight. Seems nervous about your meeting tomorrow." His father's response came quickly, "Blackwood? Interesting timing. Handle yourself with dignity, son. We'll discuss when you land." Jasper tucked his phone away, suddenly aware that the stakes of today's encounter might be higher than he'd initially realized. Walter Blackwood wasn't just any prejudiced passenger, he was potentially a business associate of his father's company. The realization settled over Jasper like a weight. His father had always taught him that in business, as in life, a black man had to be twice as professional, twice as composed, and twice as strategic as his white counterparts. Today's confrontation might have implications far beyond this flight. As the plane continued its journey northeast, Jasper returned to his financial reports, but his mind kept circling back to Walter Blackwood and the meeting in New York. Whatever Blackwood Investments wanted from Skyline Airways, Walter's behavior today had potentially jeopardized it entirely. The seatbelt sign had been illuminated for nearly 20 minutes as the aircraft battled increasingly violent turbulence. Each sudden drop and sideways jolt rattled the passengers' nerves, transforming the premium cabin's usual calm into a pressure cooker of anxiety. Walter Blackwood's complexion had taken on a greenish tinge, his earlier embarrassment now compounded by physical discomfort. When a particularly sharp bump sent a cup of water cascading onto his lap, he let out an audible groan. "Sir, are you feeling unwell?" Melissa asked, appearing at his side with practiced concern. "I can bring you a ginger ale or crackers if that might help." Walter nodded weakly, his previous arrogance entirely evaporated. Jasper observed the transformation with mixed emotions. There was a certain poetic justice in seeing the man so diminished, yet he took no pleasure in anyone's suffering. Across the aisle, Amara caught Jasper's eye and moved to the empty seat beside him again, taking advantage of the flight attendant's preoccupation with the turbulence procedures. "In moments like these, remember that you're carrying more than just your own reputation," she said quietly. Every interaction you have as a successful black person becomes a reference point for how others view all of us. Jasper nodded, his father's voice echoing in his memory from years ago. They had been driving home from a business dinner where Isaiah had been mistaken for the valet despite being the wealthiest person at the event. "Son," Isaiah had said, his hands steady on the wheel, "when they disrespect you because of your skin, you have two choices. You can lower yourself to their level and confirm their prejudices, or you can rise above it and force them to question everything they thought they knew about black excellence. Always choose the latter." The plane dropped suddenly, eliciting gasps throughout the cabin. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some unexpected weather conditions. For your safety, please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened. Flight attendants, prepare for arrival inspection." A ripple of concern spread through the passengers. Arrival inspection was not a routine announcement for weather turbulence. "Is something wrong with the plane?" a nervous passenger asked Melissa as she passed. "Just standard precautions," she replied with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nothing to worry about." But 5 minutes later, the captain's voice returned, this time with a noticeable edge of tension. "Folks, we're experiencing some technical difficulties with one of our systems. As a precautionary measure, we'll be making an unscheduled landing in Charlotte to have it checked out. Please remain calm and follow all crew instructions." The news sent a wave of anxiety through the cabin. Parents clutched their children closer, business travelers checked their watches with dismay, a few passengers began to pray quietly. In the midst of this growing panic, Walter turned accusingly toward Jasper. "Did you arrange this?" he hissed, his fear manifesting as anger. "Is this some kind of power play to teach me a lesson?" The absurdity of the accusation left Jasper momentarily speechless. "You think I would endanger an entire plane, including myself, to make a point?" Walter's eyes darted around nervously. "Your family owns the airline. You made a call, and suddenly we have technical difficulties. Seems convenient." Before Jasper could respond, a child in the row behind them began to cry, frightened by both the turbulence and the adults' tense voices. Without hesitation, Jasper turned around and spoke gently to the little boy. "Hey there, my name's Jasper. What's yours?" "T. Tyler," the boy hiccuped between sobs. "Well, Tyler, did you know that planes are built to handle way more turbulence than this? It feels scary, but it's actually like riding over little bumps in the road." Jasper reached into his bag and pulled out a small stress ball shaped like Earth. "This helps me when I get nervous. Would you like to hold it for a while?" Tyler nodded, his tears subsiding as he accepted the gift. His mother mouthed a grateful "thank you" to Jasper. The moment was interrupted by a sudden drop in cabin pressure. Oxygen masks deployed from overhead compartments, dangling above each seat like plastic jellyfish. The captain's voice, now urgent, instructed everyone to secure their masks immediately. "What do you think you would do if you were in Jasper's position right now? Would you remain calm like him or react differently?" Comment number 1 if you think Jasper should confront Walter about his ridiculous accusation, or number 2 if you think he should continue to take the high road. Make sure to like this video if you're amazed by Jasper's composure in the face of both discrimination and a flight emergency. Have you ever been in a situation where someone underestimated you based on your appearance? How did it feel when they realized their mistake? Let's see what happens next as this flight takes an unexpected detour and the power dynamics continue to shift. The aircraft touched down at Charlotte Douglas International Airport with a jarring thud, bouncing once before the wheels firmly gripped the runway. Emergency vehicles lined the tarmac, their lights flashing in the afternoon sun. Though the oxygen masks had been retracted shortly after their deployment, the tension in the cabin remained palpable as the plane taxied to a remote gate. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain announced, his voice steady but serious, "we've landed safely in Charlotte due to a pressure sensor malfunction. While there's no immediate danger, this aircraft will require maintenance before continuing to New York. Skyline Airways representatives will meet you inside the terminal with information about continuing your journey. Please remain seated until we reach the gate. Jasper noticed several passengers shooting curious glances his way at the mention of Skyline Airways. Word of his connection to the airline had clearly spread throughout the cabin during the flight. Walter Blackwood, still pale from the combination of turbulence and anxiety, kept his eyes fixed forward, refusing to acknowledge Jasper's presence despite their proximity. Once inside the terminal, passengers were directed to a private lounge reserved for disrupted Skyline flights. The spacious room, with its leather seating and complimentary refreshment bar, was designed to minimize the inconvenience of delays. However, with nearly 60 displaced first-class passengers now crowding the space, the atmosphere remained tense. "We apologize for this unexpected change to your travel plans," announced a harried-looking customer service manager. "We're arranging for a replacement aircraft to complete your journey to New York, but it will take approximately 3 hours to arrive from our Atlanta hub. Complimentary meals will be provided, and our staff is available to assist with any connection issues." A collective groan rose from the assembled travelers. Business meetings would be missed, connections would be disrupted, carefully planned schedules would unravel. Jasper found a quiet corner and pulled out his phone to call his father. To his surprise, Walter Blackwood ended up seated at the adjacent table, the crowded lounge leaving few alternatives. The older man stared intently at his own phone, his body language screaming discomfort. "Dad," Jasper said when Isaiah answered, "we've made an emergency landing in Charlotte. Some kind of pressure system issue." "I know," Isaiah replied, his voice resonating with authority even through the phone speaker. "I've already been briefed. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Jasper assured him. "Just delayed. They're saying at least 3 hours." There was a brief pause before Isaiah spoke again. "I was planning to meet you in New York, but under the circumstances, I think I'll come to Charlotte instead. My meeting isn't until tomorrow morning, and I'd rather ensure you're taken care of." Jasper knew his father well enough to understand that this wasn't just parental concern, it was also about maintaining control of the situation. Isaiah Williams never left anything to chance, especially when it involved his son or his company. "Also," Isaiah continued, his tone shifting subtly, "I understand Walter Blackwood is on your flight." Jasper glanced at Walter, who was now engrossed in what appeared to be a rather intense phone conversation of his own, his voice low but his gestures agitated. "Yes, he is," Jasper confirmed. "Interesting timing," Isaiah mused. "We have a meeting scheduled with Blackwood Investments tomorrow. They're pitching us on managing a portion of our corporate pension fund. A substantial contract." The implications weren't lost on Jasper. Walter's behavior during boarding had potentially jeopardized a major business opportunity for his company. "He didn't know who I was when he tried to have me removed from first class," Jasper explained quietly, aware that Walter might overhear despite his own phone conversation. "Of course he didn't," Isaiah replied, a hint of resigned familiarity in his voice. "They never do, son. Stay put. I'll be there in 90 minutes. As Jasper ended the call, he became aware of activity on social media. A young woman seated across the lounge was scrolling through Twitter, and Jasper caught a glimpse of what looked like a video from the aircraft. With a sinking feeling, he opened his own Twitter app and searched for Skyline Airways. There it was. The confrontation during boarding had been recorded by another passenger and was now circulating online. The video, already accumulating thousands of views, clearly showed Walter demanding Jasper's removal and Jasper's calm revelation of his family connection to the airline. The hashtag #FirstClassWhileBlack was trending. Walter, too, had discovered the viral video. His face, already pale from the flight ordeal, now blanched completely. He ended his call abruptly and began typing frantically on his phone, presumably reaching out to damage control contacts. Amara Thompson approached Jasper's table, a knowing expression on her face. "Social media," she said, taking a seat across from him. "Blessing and curse for our community." On one hand, it exposes what we've always endured. On the other, it means every interaction can become a public spectacle. Jasper nodded, uncomfortably aware of his newfound visibility. As the son of Isaiah Williams, he'd always maintained a relatively low profile, focused on his education and learning the family business from the inside. Now, through no choice of his own, he had become a symbolic figure in the ongoing conversation about race and privilege in America. "Here's my card," Amara said, sliding a sleek business card across the table. "Thompson Media Group has a fellowship program for young black entrepreneurs. Someone with your insight and experience would be a valuable addition to our network." "Thank you," Jasper replied, genuinely appreciative of the professional recognition that had nothing to do with the day's drama. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we regret to inform you that due to severe weather developing along the eastern corridor, the arrival of your replacement aircraft will be delayed until approximately 9 p.m. We sincerely apologize for this inconvenience." The news sent another wave of frustration through the lounge. Business travelers frantically rebooked meetings, tourists worried about hotel check-ins, everyone faced the prospect of spending the remainder of the day stranded in an airport lounge. For Jasper, however, the delay carried a different significance. His father would arrive long before the replacement aircraft, creating an inevitable confrontation with Walter Blackwood. The prospect filled him with a complex mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Isaiah Williams was not a man who took disrespect lightly, especially when it was directed at his only son. Walter seemed to have reached the same conclusion. His phone calls had become increasingly desperate, and Jasper overheard fragments about damage control and the Williams account. The man who had so confidently demanded Jasper's removal from first class now seemed to be fighting for his professional survival. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and both men knew it. The question that hung in the air was what would happen when Isaiah Williams arrived. Isaiah Williams did not simply enter a room, he commanded it. At 53, he carried himself with the confidence of a man who had built an empire from the ground up, his 6'3" frame impeccably dressed in a custom suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. His closely cropped salt and pepper hair and neatly trimmed beard framed a face that graced the covers of business magazines and inspired a generation of black entrepreneurs. When he strode into the Skyline Airways lounge in Charlotte, the effect was immediate. Conversations halted mid-sentence, heads turned, airport staff snapped to attention. This was not just a visiting CEO, this was the founder and majority owner of the entire airline, a billionaire whose presence was as unexpected as it was impactful. "Dad," Jasper called, rising to greet his father with a combination of respect and genuine affection. Isaiah embraced his son warmly, his public persona momentarily softening. "You okay?" he asked quietly, his eyes scanning Jasper's face for any sign of distress. "I'm fine," Jasper assured him. "Just an eventful flight." Isaiah nodded, his gaze already sweeping the lounge, registering details most would miss. He noted Amara Thompson with a respectful nod, acknowledging a peer in the world of black business leadership. And then his eyes locked onto Walter Blackwood, who had been attempting to make himself as inconspicuous as possible in his corner seat. "Mr. Blackwood," Isaiah's deep voice carried effortlessly across the space. "What a coincidence. I believe we have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow in New York." Walter rose on unsteady legs, his complexion ashen. "Mr. Williams," he managed, extending a hand that visibly trembled. "This is unexpected." "Indeed," Isaiah agreed, his handshake firm but brief. "Almost as unexpected as my son being confronted about his right to sit in first class on my airline." The lounge had gone completely silent. Every passenger, every staff member was watching the drama unfold. Some had recognized Isaiah immediately, others were quickly connecting the dots between the viral video they'd seen online and the imposing figure now standing before them. "Perhaps we should speak privately," Walter suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why?" Isaiah asked, his tone pleasant but unyielding. From what I understand, you had no concerns about publicly questioning my son's presence in first class. Why should our conversation be private? Walter's discomfort was palpable. Mr. Williams, there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Isaiah interrupted smoothly. I've seen the video, Mr. Blackwood. As have approximately 200,000 other people at last count. The hashtag is trending nationally. Several passengers had their phones out now, undoubtedly recording this confrontation to add to the viral story. Walter seemed to shrink with each passing moment, the confident businessman from boarding now reduced to a cornered figure struggling to salvage both his dignity and his company's prospects. Perhaps I can explain, Walter began, but Isaiah raised a hand to silence him. Let me tell you a story, Mr. Blackwood, Isaiah said, his voice shifting to a more conversational tone that somehow made the scene even more compelling. 25 years ago, I was a pilot for Atlantic Airways. Had all the qualifications, all the hours, all the recommendations. But no matter how perfectly I flew, I remained a first officer while less qualified white pilots were promoted to captain. He paused, letting the history settle over the silent audience. When I finally asked why I was being passed over, my supervisor told me, off the record, of course, that some passengers and crew felt uncomfortable with a black captain. Said it might unsettle the more traditional customers. Isaiah's gaze swept the lounge, connecting with each person listening. So I left. Took every penny I had, borrowed more, and started Skyline with one leased aircraft and a vision, an airline where excellence was the only criterion that mattered. Where no one would be judged by their appearance, but by their qualifications and character. He turned back to Walter. 25 years later, my son, a young man who has earned every privilege he enjoys through his intelligence and hard work, boards my airline and is immediately assumed to be in the wrong place because of the color of his skin. Walter opened his mouth to speak, but no words emerged. Your company, Blackwood Investments, is pitching to manage $300 million of Skyline's pension fund, Isaiah continued, his tone matter-of-fact. Tomorrow, you are going to tell me why I should trust you with my employees' futures. But today, you've shown me exactly who you are when you think no one important is watching. The silence in the lounge was absolute. Several passengers were nodding in agreement with Isaiah's words. Others looked uncomfortable, perhaps recognizing their own behaviors in Walter's actions. A young staff member approached tentatively. Mr. Williams, the airport manager would like to speak with you about the replacement aircraft situation. Isaiah nodded. Thank you. I'll be right there. He turned back to Walter. We'll continue this conversation shortly, Mr. Blackwood. I believe you and I have much to discuss about the future of our potential business relationship. As Isaiah stepped away to speak with the airport officials, the spell broke. Conversations resumed, though now centered entirely on what they had just witnessed. Walter collapsed back into his seat, reaching for his phone with shaking hands. Jasper, who had watched the exchange with a mixture of pride and concern, approached his father at the far end of the lounge. That was quite an entrance, he observed quietly. Isaiah's stern expression softened slightly. Sometimes a lesson needs a proper classroom, son. He placed a hand on Jasper's shoulder. You handled yourself well today. Stayed composed, maintained your dignity. Your mother would be proud. The mention of his late mother brought a lump to Jasper's throat. She had been gone for 5 years, but her influence on both their lives remained profound. Now, Isaiah continued, let's see about getting these people to New York. I think we've all had enough drama for one day. The airport manager departed, leaving Isaiah and Jasper alone in the small conference room adjacent to the lounge. The replacement aircraft situation had grown more complicated. Thunderstorms were now blanketing much of the eastern seaboard, causing cascading delays throughout the system. So we're looking at a midnight arrival in New York, at best, Jasper summarized, reviewing the information they just received. Isaiah nodded, his expression thoughtful. Unacceptable. These passengers have already been delayed enough. He pulled out his phone and made a brief call. James, prepare the Gulfstream. We're flying from Charlotte to LaGuardia. 60 passengers plus crew. Yes, immediately. Jasper raised an eyebrow as his father ended the call. You're taking everyone on the company jet? It's the right thing to do, Isaiah replied simply. And good business. These people will remember how Skyline handled this situation long after they've forgotten the delay itself. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. Walter Blackwood stood in the doorway, his posture stiff but determined. Mr. Williams, may I speak with you? Privately. Isaiah gestured for him to enter. My son stays. Anything you have to say to me can be said in front of him. Walter closed the door behind him and took a deep breath. I want to apologize. My behavior was inexcusable. I let prejudiced assumptions guide my actions, and I'm deeply ashamed. The prepared statement sounded rehearsed, probably crafted during frantic phone consultations with his company's PR team. Isaiah listened impassively, giving no indication of his thoughts. I understand if you no longer wish to consider Blackwood Investments for your pension fund management, Walter continued. But I hope you'll consider that one man's terrible mistake shouldn't cost the jobs of my 300 employees who depend on accounts like yours. Isaiah remained silent for a long moment, studying Walter with the penetrating gaze that had unnerved countless business rivals over the years. What do you think, Jasper? He finally asked, turning to his son. Mr. Blackwood seems concerned about the consequences of his actions. Jasper considered the question carefully. Part of him, the part that had felt the sting of Walter's prejudice, wanted to see the man face real consequences. But another part, the one his parents had cultivated so carefully, recognized an opportunity for something more meaningful than simple retribution. I think, Jasper began slowly, that this could be a teachable moment rather than just a punishable one. Both men looked at him with interest. Blackwood Investments manages what, 30 billion in assets? Jasper asked Walter. 32 billion, Walter confirmed, surprised by the question. And what percentage of your portfolio companies have diverse leadership? How many of your fund managers are people of color? Jasper pressed. Walter shifted uncomfortably. I don't have the exact figures, less than 3%, Jasper interrupted. I researched your company while we were waiting. Your executive team is entirely white, and your board has one token person of color who was appointed last year after pressure from institutional investors. Isaiah's expression remained neutral, but his eyes reflected pride in his son's preparation. So here's what I propose, Jasper continued, warming to his idea. Skyline Airways will consider your company for our pension fund management, but with conditions. First, Blackwood Investments will establish a $50 million fund specifically for minority entrepreneurs in the transportation sector. Second, you will implement a comprehensive diversity and inclusion program with measurable outcomes, not just lip service. And third, you personally will mentor 5 black business students each year, providing them with the connections and opportunities they need to succeed in finance. Walter stared at Jasper, clearly surprised by both the sophistication of the proposal and its unexpected direction. That's substantial. So is $300 million in pension fund management fees, Jasper replied evenly. Isaiah watched the exchange with undisguised approval. His son was demonstrating not just compassion, but strategic thinking, using leverage to create systemic change rather than settling for a simple apology. Mr. Blackwood, Isaiah finally spoke, my son has offered you a path forward that benefits not just your company, but the broader community. It addresses not just your individual actions today, but the systemic issues that made you think those actions were acceptable in the first place. I believe that's more than fair. Walter nodded slowly, recognizing that this was less a negotiation than a lifeline being extended. I would need to consult with my board, but speaking personally, I accept these terms. And I'm genuinely grateful for the opportunity to make amends in a meaningful way. Before the conversation could continue, the door opened again, and the Skyline customer service manager entered with an urgent expression. Mr. Williams, we've just received word that all commercial flights in and out of the New York area are now grounded due to the weather system. Nothing will be moving until morning at the earliest. Frustrated sighs came from both Walter and Jasper, but Isaiah appeared unfazed. That's fine. The Gulfstream can handle the weather. We'll proceed as planned. The manager's eyes widened. Sir. You're taking the passengers on your private jet? All of them, Isaiah confirmed. Please inform everyone to gather their belongings. We'll bus them to the private aviation terminal in 20 minutes. As the manager hurried away to make the arrangements, Walter looked at Isaiah with new understanding. You're flying everyone to New York on your personal aircraft? That's extraordinary. No, Mr. Blackwood, Isaiah corrected him. It's the bare minimum of what I expect from leaders in my organization. Taking care of people, regardless of who they are or what they look like, that's not extraordinary. It's essential. The lesson wasn't lost on Walter, whose expression reflected a dawning comprehension that went beyond the immediate situation. He was witnessing a different model of leadership, one built on genuine concern for others rather than mere profit or prestige. We should join the others, Jasper suggested, checking his watch. They'll have questions about the change in plans. As they made their way back to the main lounge, Isaiah placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Your solution was excellent, he said quietly. You found a way to create lasting change rather than momentary satisfaction. That's true leadership. Jasper nodded, appreciating his father's approval but also recognizing the weight of responsibility that came with their position. Today had been a stark reminder that the fight against prejudice wasn't limited to grand gestures or public statements. It lived in everyday interactions, in first-class cabins and corporate boardrooms, in assumptions made and privileges unquestioned. The three men entered the lounge together, presenting a united front that would have seemed impossible just hours earlier. The next phase of their journey, both literal and figurative, was about to begin. Isaiah Williams's Gulfstream G650 was the epitome of luxury aviation. With its spacious cabin configured to seat 18 passengers comfortably, accommodating the 60-plus travelers from the commercial flight required creative arrangement and multiple trips. Isaiah had ordered the first flight to prioritize those with urgent connections or medical needs, with Walter Blackwood conspicuously assigned to the final group. Now, as the last cohort of passengers boarded the gleaming private jet for the short flight to New York, the atmosphere was markedly different from the tense commercial cabin earlier that day. The elegant interior, with its hand-stitched leather seats and burled walnut tables, created an environment of exceptional privilege, one that none of these travelers had expected to experience when they began their journey. Please, make yourselves comfortable, Isaiah instructed as the final passengers settled in. We'll be airborne shortly. The flight to LaGuardia will take approximately 90 minutes, weather permitting. Jasper observed the passengers' reactions with interest. Some seemed awed by their surroundings, taking photos and excitedly pointing out features of the luxury aircraft. Others appeared uncomfortable with this unexpected proximity to wealth and power, sitting stiffly in their plush seats. Walter Blackwood fell into the latter category, choosing a seat at the far end of the cabin, his body language conveying his desire to remain unnoticed. As the jet climbed steeply into the darkening sky, banking smoothly to the northeast, Isaiah moved throughout the cabin, greeting passengers with the easy charm that had helped build his business empire. When he reached Amara Thompson, their conversation shifted into the comfortable rhythm of peers who respected each other's accomplishments. Your handling of today's situation has been masterful, Amara noted, keeping her voice low. Turning a potential PR disaster into a demonstration of exemplary customer service. Isaiah smiled slightly. The best response to ugliness is often beauty. To pettiness, generosity. And to racism? Amara asked, the question hanging meaningfully between them. Excellence, Isaiah replied simply. Uncompromising, undeniable excellence. Their conversation continued, touching on business trends and mutual connections, while Jasper found himself seated across from an elderly couple who had been quietly observing the day's events. "Young man," the gentleman said, leaning forward, "I want you to know that many of us on that flight were disturbed by how you were treated. Not everyone thinks like that fellow." He nodded discreetly toward Walter. "Thank you," Jasper replied sincerely. "That means a lot." "My Harold worked for Eastern Airlines for 35 years, the woman added. "Started as a baggage handler and retired as a vice president. Back then, they wouldn't even hire colored, black, folks for customer-facing positions. To see you and your father owning an entire airline." She shook her head in wonder. "It's a different world, thank the Lord." "Different," Jasper agreed, "but still with a long way to go." As the flight progressed, Isaiah eventually made his way to Walter's seat, sliding into the place across from him with the easy confidence of a man entirely comfortable in his own domain. "Mr. Blackwood," he began conversationally, "did you know I started my career as a baggage handler? Worked my way through college loading luggage at Newark Airport." Walter looked surprised. "I had assumed, given your piloting background, that I came from privilege." Isaiah finished for him. "No. My father was a postal worker, my mother a teacher. They emphasized education and hard work above all else." He gazed out the window at the cloud-strewn night sky. "When I finally earned my commercial pilot's license, I thought the hard part was over. I was wrong." He turned back to Walter. "The aviation industry in the 90s wasn't eager to put black men in the cockpit. Too many passengers and executives shared your initial reaction to my son. The assumption that we didn't belong in positions of authority or prestige." Walter had the grace to look ashamed. "I've never thought of myself as prejudiced," he said quietly. "I have black colleagues, clients, most people who perpetuate racism don't consider themselves racist," Isaiah interrupted smoothly. "That's what makes it so persistent. It disguises itself as concerns about qualifications or cultural fit or customer comfort." The conversation paused as the flight attendant, Isaiah's personal staff, not Skyline employees, offered them drinks. When they were alone again, Walter spoke with unexpected candor. "My father was, of a different generation," he said hesitantly. "He had very fixed views about race, about who belonged where. I always thought I'd rejected his outlook, but today." He trailed off, confronting an uncomfortable truth. "Today I saw myself becoming him, making the same assumptions, enforcing the same boundaries." Isaiah studied him thoughtfully. "Recognition is the first step. What matters now is what you do with that recognition." Across the cabin, Jasper was engaged in animated conversation with Amara about the future of black-owned businesses in America. Their discussion had attracted several other passengers, creating an impromptu roundtable that spanned generations and backgrounds. "The challenge isn't just building successful black businesses," Jasper was saying, "it's changing the ecosystem around them. Access to capital, mentorship networks, customer perception, these are all still tilted against us. Which is why visible success stories like Skyline are so important," Amara added. "They change what people believe is possible." As New York's lights came into view below, twinkling through breaks in the cloud cover, the aircraft began its descent. The sprawling metropolis, with its endless opportunities and persistent inequalities, seemed an appropriate backdrop for the day's events. The jet touched down smoothly at LaGuardia's private aviation terminal, taxiing to a stop far from the commercial concourses where the passengers had expected to arrive. As people prepared to disembark, Walter approached Jasper, asking for a private word. "I owe you an apology," he said directly, meeting Jasper's eyes with what appeared to be genuine remorse. "Not just for today, but for representing a mindset that has undoubtedly affected you throughout your life. I can't undo that, but I want you to know that I'm committed to the changes we discussed. Not just because of the business implications, but because it's right. Jasper measured the man before him, searching for sincerity beyond the carefully chosen words. "Actions will speak louder than any apology, Mr. Blackwood. I look forward to seeing what you do next." As they parted, Jasper couldn't help but wonder if today's confrontation had truly changed Walter Blackwood, or if the man was simply adapting to protect his business interests. Either way, the mechanisms for accountability were now in place: the diversity fund, the mentorship program, the measurable commitments. Sometimes, Jasper reflected, systemic change had to begin with individual transformations, however reluctantly they might come. 6 months later, the sleek conference room at Skyline Airways headquarters hummed with anticipation as Jasper Williams prepared to address the gathered audience. At 18, he projected a confidence beyond his years, standing tall in a custom suit before a diverse group of high school students from across New York City. "Welcome to the first official session of Skyline's Future Leaders program," Jasper began, surveying the 20 teenagers selected for the competitive mentorship initiative. "Each of you is here because you've demonstrated exceptional potential. Over the next year, you'll receive guidance, resources, and connections to help you build your path to success." What the students didn't know, what only a handful of people knew, was that this program was funded entirely by Blackwood Investments, part of the agreement that had emerged from that fateful flight. Walter Blackwood himself sat in the back row, his presence a testament to the unexpected outcomes that had followed their confrontation. The incident on Flight 1867 had indeed gone viral, amassing millions of views across social media platforms. #FirstClassWhileBlack had trended for days, sparking conversations about the persistent prejudices faced by Black Americans regardless of their economic status. What transformed the story from merely another viral moment of racial reckoning into something more lasting was what happened afterward. Rather than simply severing ties with Blackwood Investments, Skyline Airways had publicly announced a new partnership focused on creating opportunities for minority youth in aviation and finance. Walter Blackwood, in a press conference that made business headlines, had acknowledged his profound failure of judgment and committed his company to concrete changes. The resulting diversity initiative had substance behind it, not just carefully worded mission statements, but measurable goals, dedicated funding, and accountability mechanisms. In the months since, Blackwood Investments had doubled its hiring of minority financial analysts, appointed 2 Black executives to its leadership team, and established the promised $50 million fund for minority entrepreneurs. Today's success often depends not just on what you know, but who you know, Jasper continued in his address to the students. "Our goal is to ensure that talented young people from all backgrounds have access to the networks that drive opportunity in this country." As he outlined the program's components, mentorship pairings, internship placements, college counseling, Jasper caught his father's eye. Isaiah nodded slightly, pride evident in his expression. This program had been largely Jasper's vision, developed from his own experiences navigating elite spaces where few people looked like him. After the presentation, as the students broke into smaller groups for orientation activities, Amara Thompson approached Jasper. She had joined Skyline's board of directors 3 months earlier, bringing her media expertise to help shape the company's public narrative. "You've taken what could have been just another viral moment and built something lasting," she observed. "That's rare." "It still feels like just a beginning," Jasper admitted. "For every student in this room, there are thousands facing the same barriers without the same opportunities. Change happens in ripples," Amara reminded him. "These students will influence others, who will influence others. Systems don't transform overnight." Across the room, Walter Blackwood was engaged in conversation with Isaiah. Their relationship had evolved into something neither man could have predicted. Not friendship, exactly, but a working partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals. Walter had become an unexpected advocate for diversity within the financial industry, speaking candidly about his own journey of recognition and reform. "Mr. Williams," Walter said, approaching Jasper as the event wound down. "A moment of your time?" Jasper nodded, still not entirely comfortable with the man despite their ongoing professional connection. "I wanted you to know that the mentorship program you suggested has been, transformative, Walter said, choosing his words carefully. Not just for the students, but for me personally. Working with these young people has changed how I see the world. I'm glad to hear it, Jasper replied, searching the older man's face for signs of the dismissive executive from that first-class cabin. He found instead someone humbled, someone still learning, someone trying to be better. My company is better for it, Walter continued. More innovative, more responsive, more reflective of the actual world we live in. I wish I could say I would have come to these realizations on my own, but the truth is, I needed that wake-up call on the plane. Before Jasper could respond, a young student approached them hesitantly. Excuse me, Mr. Williams. I had a question about the aviation engineering track you mentioned. As Jasper turned his attention to the student, he reflected on how much had changed in 6 months. The viral moment had faded from public attention, as such things inevitably do, but its effects continued to ripple outward. 2 years later, when Jasper graduated from business school and officially joined Skyline Airways as Director of Strategic Initiatives, the company had become recognized as an industry leader in both diversity practices and customer experience. Isaiah remained CEO, but increasingly delegated key decisions to his son, preparing for an eventual transition of leadership. The Future Leaders program had expanded to 5 cities, with over 100 students participating annually. Several graduates of the first cohort had received college scholarships and internship placements, their trajectories forever altered by the opportunities they'd accessed. On a cool autumn morning, Jasper boarded a Skyline flight to Chicago for a business conference. As he settled into his first-class seat, he noticed a young white businessman eyeing him with a mixture of recognition and uncertainty. "You're Jasper Williams, aren't you?" the man asked as passengers continued boarding. "From the video? The airline owner's son?" Jasper nodded, prepared for any number of reactions. The viral incident had become part of his public identity, for better or worse. "I just wanted to say," the man continued, seeming genuinely earnest, "that video changed how I think about things. Made me more aware of assumptions I make without realizing it." He extended his hand awkwardly. "I'm Ryan Matthews. It's an honor to meet you." As Jasper shook the offered hand, he thought about cycles broken and new patterns formed, about individual moments that cascaded into systemic change, about his father's lifelong emphasis on excellence as the most powerful response to prejudice. "The honor is mine," Jasper replied, and meant it. This powerful story teaches us that dignity in the face of discrimination can be more impactful than anger. Jasper's composure didn't just protect his personal dignity. It created space for meaningful change. We see that excellence truly is the most powerful response to prejudice, as Isaiah wisely taught his son. The story reminds us that true change requires more than viral moments or public shaming. Real transformation happens when we convert confrontation into education, when we use our privilege to create opportunities for others, and when we hold people accountable through systems rather than just words. Walter's journey shows that people can evolve when they're willing to recognize their biases and take concrete steps to address them. Meanwhile, Jasper demonstrates that leadership isn't about wielding power over others, but about lifting people up and creating pathways where none existed before. Perhaps most importantly, we learn that breaking cycles of prejudice isn't achieved through a single dramatic confrontation, but through the consistent, determined work that follows. The programs established, the opportunities created, and the lives changed as a result. What would you do if you were in Jasper's position? Would you use your platform to create lasting change like he did? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Has someone ever underestimated you, only to be shocked when they learned who you really were? If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about overcoming prejudice and breaking barriers. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message of dignity, excellence, and transformation. Thank you for joining me for this journey. Remember that sometimes our most difficult moments can become the catalyst for our greatest impact. Until next time, keep standing tall in your truth and lifting others as you rise.